Imagine you're standing right in the middle of the National Corvette Museum down in Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Right.
It's 2014, and you're surrounded by these pristine, priceless pieces of American automotive history, just gleaming under the showroom
Oh,
lights.
yeah, a car lover's dream.
Exactly. And the concrete beneath your feet feels, well, as solid and permanent as anything could possibly be. And then, without any warning whatsoever, the floor just it simply vanishes.
Wow.
Yeah, it gives way, completely swallowing a whole fleet of these classic cars into this massive, hidden, pitch black underground abyss.
That event, I mean, it perfectly shatters the whole illusion of terra firma, right?
Totally.
We navigate our daily lives just assuming the ground is this solid, unbroken block. But underneath that museum, the Earth had quite literally just ceased to exist.
And it wasn't a structural failure of the building itself, which is the crazy part. The actual earth beneath it had been secretly hollowed out. So welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is to map out this invisible, dissolving world beneath our feet. It's a phenomenon known as karst.
Karst, exactly.
We've got a stack of geographical and scientific sources, and we're going to break down how this hidden subterranean network dictates the shape of the Earth's surface.
And, why entire rivers pull magic tricks and just disappear into thin air.
Right. And why the water you drink might be flowing through a massive empty void hidden just below your own lawn.
Karst completely subverts our normal understanding of geology.
Oh, so?
Well, when we picture landscapes forming, we usually imagine brute mechanical force, like glaciers grinding mountains down to dust or roaring rivers physically tearing rocks apart to carve canyons.
Right, like the Grand Canyon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But karst topography is entirely different. It's a landscape that's sculpted by this quiet, relentless chemical dissolution.
So it's chemical, not physical.
Right. We're talking about regions where the bedrock is made of highly soluble rocks, primarily carbonate rocks like limestone and dolomite.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit. Because to understand how a museum floor can suddenly drop out from under you, we really need to understand the invisible chemistry happening like every single time it rains.
Oh, absolutely.
And I was looking through our sources, and the process actually starts way up in the atmosphere, doesn't it?
It does. Raindrops are really the initial catalyst here. As precipitation falls through the sky, it picks up a little bit of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere.
Okay.
But the real chemical shift happens when that water actually hits the ground and seeps into the soil layer.
Because soil is alive, right?
Exactly. Soil is just packed with biological respiration. Microbes, plant roots, decaying organic matter, they're all exhaling huge amounts of CO2.
Oh, wow.
So when the rainwater absorbs that heavy concentration of carbon dioxide in the soil, it transforms into a weak carbonic acid.
Okay, so basically every time it rains, the sky is dropping this very weak, flat soda water onto the limestone bedrock.
Yeah, that's a great way to picture it.
But wait, earlier I was thinking about this like a giant sugar cube melting in a cup of water. But that's not actually scientifically accurate, is it?
Not quite, no.
Because sugar dissolves just by breaking physical bonds, but this is a chemical reaction. It sounds more like plaque acid eating away at your tooth enamel.
That tooth enamel analogy is spot on, actually. Plaque produces an acid that actively strips minerals from the tooth and eventually hollows out a cavity.
Yikes.
Okay, right. Down in the bedrock, this weak carbonic acid flows into microscopic fractures in the limestone and actively pulls the calcium carbon out of the rock.
So it's chemically altering the stone itself?
Yes, and carrying the minerals away in solution. But what's really fascinating here is for this to carve out the colossal underground caves we see in karst landscapes, there is a critical requirement.
Which is?
The water must keep moving downward.
Oh, because if the water just pools up in a static underground reservoir, what happens? I mean, the acid must eventually neutralize, right?
Exactly. The standing groundwater eventually reaches a state of chemical equilibrium. It gets fully saturated with those dissolved carbonate minerals, and the dissolution process simply stops. So to hollow out a cave, you really need moderate to heavy rainfall combined with a relatively low water table.
Right, so the water keeps flowing.
Yeah, that ensures the slightly acidic water rapidly flows downward through vertical fractures, constantly delivering fresh acid to chew deeper and deeper into the stone.
That explains the typical limestone caves. But the sources highlight an even more extreme version of this chemistry, something involving sulfuric acid.
Oh, yeah. The deep anoxic systems.
Right, and I want to push back on this a bit because the sources mention this happens in environments completely devoid of oxygen. But then it says surface water triggers the reaction by bringing oxygen down.
Yep.
How does oxygen-rich water get deep enough to mix with these deep sulfide waters without losing all its oxygen along the way? It just seems contradictory.
You've hit on exactly why these specific systems are so rare. Typically, surface water loses its dissolved oxygen very quickly as biological processes consume it up in the shallow soil layers.
Right, the microbes use it all up.
Exactly. However, if the limestone has massive, direct, vertical fractures, essentially geological express elevators,
Okay.
then surface water can plummet straight down into the deep aquifer before the oxygen is actually depleted.
Oh, wow.
And when that undepleted oxygen crashes into deep, stagnant groundwater that's rich in hydrogen sulfide gas, a violent oxidation reaction occurs.
And that reaction produces actual sulfuric acid. Like, we're talking battery acid just eating the earth.
Literally, yes. Hydrogen sulfide mixed with oxygen produces a highly corrosive sulfuric acid, and this eats through limestone aggressively.
Way faster than the weak soda water rain.
Oh, far faster. And instead of just washing the dissolved rock away, this specific reaction leaves behind colossal deposits of a mineral called gypsum.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, we know this mechanism formed the legendary La Jugría cave in New Mexico, and geologists are actually observing it actively carving out the Frasassi caves in Italy right now.
That is mind-blowing. So if this invisible chemistry, whether it's, thousands of years of weak carbonic acid or rapid blasts of sulfuric acid, is aggressively hollowing out the earth below, what on earth does that do to the surface above?
It creates some pretty spectacular geography.
Because looking at the sources, the landscapes this leaves behind are totally alien.
They really are. The signatures of karstification are etched across the surface at wildly varying scales.
Like what?
Well, at the microscopic end, rainfall on exposed limestone carves these deep, parallel runnels called solution flutes.
Okay.
But if you expand that scale, you get what geologists call limestone pavement. The acidic rain eats away the intersecting vertical joints of the rock, leaving behind what looks exactly like an ancient man-made road.
Paved with those massive flat blocks of stone.
No, called clints, separated by deep, dark fissures called grikes.
And as you scale up from there, you hit the features that actually swallow buildings, right?
Yep.
Things like cenotes, which are those massive, deep, water-filled sinkholes famous in Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula.
Oh, that's at Karst.
Or poljes, which are these enormous, flat-bottomed valleys entirely walled in by sheer limestone cliffs. But, the imagery that really sticks with me are the tropical karst landscapes.
Oh, they're beautiful.
Anyone who has seen the James Bond film The Man with the Golden Gun knows Phang Bay in Thailand.
Oh, yeah, with those sheer rock pillars rising straight out of the ocean.
Exactly. Or the towering stone forests in southern Vietnam, Halong Bay. Or the ones in China that inspired the floating Hallelujah Mountains in Avatar.
Yeah, tropical environments really supercharge the karst process.
Because of the rain?
Mostly, yes.
Oh.
You have incredibly aggressive chemical weathering fueled by torrential monsoon rains, paired with intense biological activity in the soil, pumping out massive amounts of CO2.
Right. More CO2, more acid.
And when you add wave erosion at sea level in places like Thailand or Vietnam, it aggressively undercuts those cliffs, creating that stark, top-heavy appearance.
Which leads to a massive logical puzzle I need you to solve.
Okay, shoot.
So geologists call these towering cone-like hills Kegel karst or haystack landscapes, right?
They do. Found in places like Cuba, China, Jamaica.
But wait, if this entire geological process is based on acidic rain falling from the sky and constantly dissolving the ground downward, how do we end up with towering stone peaks shooting up into the sky?
It's a great question.
It feels completely backward.
It looks backward because our brains are trained to view mountains as things that were pushed upward by tectonic forces.
Exactly.
But haystack hills aren't mountains that grew. They are the resistant remnants of a landscape that melted.
Wait, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Geologists consider this a mature karst landscape.
So you're saying the tops of those towering peaks used to be the ground floor?
Precisely. Imagine a massive, thick plateau of solid limestone. Millions of years of water eating away at the weakest fractures widens them into valleys.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
As the valleys widen into vast plains, the bulk of the bedrock simply washes away. In a mature karst landscape, more of the original stone has been removed than actually remains.
That is insane.
Right. Those towering haystacks are just the final, most stubborn pillars of stone left standing. You're essentially looking at the bare, dissolved skeleton of an ancient, vanished plateau.
That completely shifts the paradigm. You're living on the melted remains of an ancient world.
Yeah.
And because these landforms are so utterly bizarre and specific, the people who historically lived among them had to invent a completely unique vocabulary just to navigate their daily reality.
That's true. Geography fundamentally shapes language.
Yeah.
The word Karst itself is a geographical footprint.
Where does it come from?
Well, we use it in English via a German borrowing, but the root is actually a Romanized Illyrian-based word, Karsus.
Karst.
Yeah, and it was specifically coined to describe the jagged, unforgiving limestone plateau located between Italy and Slovenia in the Dinaric Alps.
And when you look at the modern scientific lexicon for this geology, it is dominated by South Slavic terms from that exact region.
Absolutely.
Like a sinkhole or enclosed valley is called a doline.
Yep.
Those massive flat-bottomed valleys we talked about are bolges. And a poner is the specific portal where a surface river suddenly vanishes into the underground abyss.
The foundational science of karst is deeply European.
Mm-hmm.
Take the 17th century polymath Johann Weikart von Valvassor.
Say.
In 1689, he introduced the concept of subterranean hydrology to the Royal Society in London by studying Lake Certnica in Slovenia.
But how did a scientist in 1689 map an underground plumbing system without, ground-penetrating radar or modern scuba gear?
Simply by meticulous observation of a seemingly impossible phenomenon.
Okay.
Lake Certnica is a massive seasonal lake situated in a Polje. Valvassor watched this enormous body of water act like a giant bathtub with a leaky drain.
A leaky drain.
Yeah. During the dry summer months, the lake would completely vanish. Valvassor literally walked the dry lake bed, mapped out the deep sinkholes, and realized the water wasn't merely evaporating.
It was draining out.
Right. He listened to the subterranean roaring and deduced the water was draining into these poners, flowing through an unseen network of caves, and welling back up when the autumn rains overwhelmed the plumbing.
That's brilliant for 1689.
It was. Later, in 1893, Jovan Cvicic expanded on these localized observations to publish comprehensive works that basically made him the father of karst geomorphology.
But the history of the science has a pretty glaring blind spot, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely.
Here's where it gets really interesting. For decades, the speleologists, the people actually strapping on ropes and going down into these vertical abysses to map the caves, they were totally dismissed by the academic geology community.
Academic snobbery played a huge role there. Yeah. Early speleologists were undertaking expeditions of extreme physical danger. They were navigating absolute darkness, squeezing through flooded restrictions, and rappelling down sheer vertical shafts.
And this was long before modern sending gear was invented.
Exactly. They were using rudimentary rope techniques. Because it required the athleticism and risk tolerance of extreme alpinism, armchair geologists viewed it merely as an adrenaline sport.
Just a bunch of thrill seekers.
Right. They completely dismissed the scientific value of actually being inside the bedrock.
They were looking at these muddy cave explorers and completely ignoring the fact that these people were literally mapping the internal organs of the planet.
It's quite ironic.
It wasn't until French scientists in the late 1950s and 60s formalized karst hydrology as a serious discipline that the broader scientific community finally realized these adrenaline junkies held the key to understanding a hydrological roller coaster.
And the moment scientists actually analyzed the maps those speleologists were drawing, they realized karst breaks every fundamental rule of how water behaves on the surface. Well, in a typical landscape, rain falls, pools into streams, merges into rivers, and flows over the land toward the ocean. In a karst landscape, surface water is an anomaly.
Oh, because it all drains underground.
Exactly. Heavy rain can fall, and it just instantly vanishes into the rock fractures.
Which brings us to the disappearing rivers, which is undoubtedly the most theatrical feature of karst geology.
Oh, for sure.
The sources highlight the Ljubljanica River in Slovenia, which is notoriously dubbed the River of Seven Names.
Such a great example.
It flows on the surface, drops entirely underground into a poner, travels through a massive cave system, and then springs back up to the surface miles away, only to drop back down again.
Over and over.
Yeah. And every time it popped up in a new valley, historically, the local populations gave it a new name, completely unaware it was the exact same river pulling a fast one on them.
We actually have dramatic examples of this in the United States as well.
Oh, really? Where?
In Wyoming's Sinks Canyon State Park. The Popoagie River runs right into a cavern in the Madison Limestone Formation, an area aptly named the Sinks, and it completely disappears.
Just gone.
Completely gone. Then, half a mile down the canyon, the entire volume of the river placidly bubbles back up out of a fissure into a calm pool.
It's literally like a magician's trick. The river steps into a cabinet, completely disappears beneath the stage, and then reappears miles away, sometimes operating under a totally different stage name.
That's a perfect analogy.
But mechanically, how does a river flow downward into a cave and then push itself back up to the surface half a mile away? I mean, gravity dictates water flows down.
It relies on hydrostatic pressure and geological siphons.
Okay, explain that.
Imagine a U-shaped pipe under your kitchen sink.
Okay.
The water flows down to the cave, completely fills a downward sloping conduit, and hits a blockage or restriction.
So it backs up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As tons of water pile up behind it in the sinkhole, the sheer weight and pressure of that column of water forces it to push up the other side of the U-shaped conduit.
Oh, wow.
And it pushes until it finds a breach in the surface, bursting out as a karst spring.
That makes total sense. And that pressure system also explains karst fensters, or windows, right?
Yeah.
Where an underground stream briefly cascades on the surface before vanishing down another sinkhole.
Yes, exactly.
And it accounts for Turlough in Ireland, those seasonal disappearing lakes that magically fill and drain, based purely on the surging pressure of the invisible water table below them.
Now, if we connect this to the bigger picture, this isn't just a quirky magic trick. It radically alters how water is stored and transported across entire regions.
Right.
This is where karst shifts from being a fascinating geological curiosity into a highly vulnerable, critical human resource.
Yeah, the numbers in the sources on this are staggering. Karst aquifers supply about 25% of the global demand for drinkable water.
A full quarter.
A quarter of the water humanity relies on is coursing through these hidden dissolving rocks. And the danger lies entirely in how that water moves.
Compare a typical aquifer to a karst aquifer. A normal aquifer consists of porous rock, like sandstone.
Right, like a sponge.
Exactly. Water squeezes through microscopic spaces between individual grains of sand. It moves incredibly slowly, sometimes taking years to travel just a few miles.
Okay.
Karst aquifers, conversely, are composed of open conduits. You were dealing with literal underground rivers flowing through hollow pipes.
And they move fast. The sources measured the Barton Springs Edwards Aquifer in Texas, noting water moving anywhere from half a mile to 7 miles per single day.
Right.
So what does this all mean for you? Well, if your town gets its water from a normal sandstone aquifer, the earth acts like a giant, slow drip Brita filter.
Great analogy.
By the time surface water percolates down hundreds of feet, the rock matrix has physically filtered out a massive amount of impurities. But in a karst aquifer, it's essentially an open water slide.
Yep.
A drop of water hits the surface and shoots straight from a farm's trash dump directly to your kitchen tap in a matter of hours.
And that complete lack of natural filtration makes human habitation in karst regions incredibly precarious.
It sounds like a nightmare for city planners.
Oh, it is. Because if a sinkhole opens up in a cattle pasture, all the agricultural runoff, the nitrates, the animal waste, it just washes straight down the drain into the drinking supply.
Zero filtration.
None. And historically, because sinkholes are essentially pre-dug pits on a property, farmers in rural communities use them as convenient trash dumps.
Oh, right. Throwing rusty engine blocks, batteries, and chemical barrels right into the open veins of their own water supply.
Exactly. And even modern infrastructure struggles.
Yeah.
An overloaded municipal septic system in a karst landscape can dump raw sewage directly into an underground channel.
And the bacteria doesn't die off.
No, because the water rushes through the open caves so violently, the harmful bacteria simply do not have the weeks or months required to naturally die off before arriving at a municipal spring.
And tracing a contamination spill must be basically impossible. I mean, you have a chaotic, invisible maze of 3D pipes.
It's incredibly difficult.
You can't just look at a surface map and predict where a chemical spill from a flipped tanker truck on the highway is going to end up.
You really can't. Conventional hydrogeology relies on drilling test wells and assuming water flows in a predictable, uniform gradient.
Right.
In karst terrain, those assumptions are entirely useless. A spill might flow north underground while the surface topography slopes south.
So how do you track it?
To actually map this plumbing, geologists have to conduct dye traces.
Dye traces?
Yeah, they pour massive quantities of non-toxic, highly visible fluorescent dye, like rhodamine WT, directly into a sinking stream or a suspected sinkhole.
And then what? They just run around town looking for glowing green puddles.
Not quite. It requires meticulous monitoring. Before injecting the dye, scientists place small, activated charcoal packets at dozens of springs, wells, and cave streams miles away in every
Yeah.
direction.
Oh, so they set traps for the dye.
Exactly. They leave them there for weeks, periodically swapping them out and taking them to a lab to test for microscopic traces of the dye. It is an incredibly labor-intensive game of underground hide-and-seek, simply to prove that a specific farm's sinkhole connects to a specific town's drinking well miles away.
It's vital work. But, as I read further into the sources, water isn't the only invaluable fluid trapped in these dissolving rocks.
No, it's not.
There is a whole section dedicated to something called paleokarst, which is essentially fossilized, buried karst from ancient geological periods.
Right, buried deep underground.
And the claim here is wild. Up to 50% of the world's known hydrocarbon or petroleum reserves are hosted in these ancient karst systems.
It's a huge number.
But I have to ask, if karst is made of massive, open, hollow voids, why didn't the caves just crush in on themselves under the weight of millions of years of rock piling on top of them? How does a water cave turn into an oil reservoir?
Well, the truth is they rarely stay empty. Over deep geological time, ancient karst landscapes often sank below sea level.
Okay.
The massive caves partially collapsed, creating what we call a collapsed breccia, which is just a huge jumble of broken, jagged rock.
So it's not a hollow room anymore, it's filled with rubble.
Exactly. And those cavernous spaces were then filled with marine sediments, sand, and organic matter.
Gotcha.
Then, crucially, an impermeable layer of rock, like shale, was deposited right over the top of the entire system, sealing it like a lid on a jar.
So the empty caves become a sealed, porous sponge packed with dead organic matter.
Precisely. And as millions of years pass and tectonic pressures increase, that trapped organic matter cooks down into petroleum.
Wow.
The oil doesn't pool in a vast underground lake. It occupies the infinite tiny spaces within the collapsed, fossilized ruins of the ancient cave system.
That is fascinating.
Much of our global energy infrastructure exists solely because we are tapping into the ghosts of dead karst landscapes buried miles underground.
It really is astonishing how much of our modern world, our energy grid, our drinking water, the structural integrity of the ground we build our museums on is entirely dictated by a quiet chemical reaction between rain, soil, and rock.
It really is.
We've traced how a weak carbonic acid hollows out the earth, leaving behind towering haystack skeletons and swallowed sinkhole valleys.
Yep.
We've seen how it forces rivers to pull disappearing acts through geological siphons, and how it provides a massive, incredibly vulnerable portion of our global water supply.
Karstine body is a profound geological contradiction.
Yeah.
It's carved by something as weak as a raindrop, yet it hollows out voids large enough to swallow buildings.
Right.
It provides a quarter of the world's drinking water, yet the surface terrain is often bone dry, just swallowing every single drop.
It's a paradox.
But there is one final detail hidden in our sources that I think perfectly captures the unique value of these landscapes.
Ooh, what's the final provocative thought for the listener?
Well, because karst terrain, especially limestone pavement and haystack hills, is so incredibly jagged, rocky, and notoriously difficult for humans to traverse or cultivate.
It's basically a nightmare to walk on.
Exactly.
Right.
But because of that, it has accidentally created some of the most pristine, undisturbed biological sanctuaries on the planet.
Oh, wow.
The very landscape that twists ankles and shatters plow blades has insulated these unique ecosystems known as karst forests.
So it's like the ultimate defense mechanism. The terrain is so brutal, humans simply couldn't get in there to cut it down or pave it over.
Precisely. And because the thin soil resting on top of the dissolved limestone boasts an unusually high alkaline pH, it forces biological adaptation.
It creates its own weird evolutionary bubble.
Yeah. These jagged, inaccessible rock islands and steep hidden sinkholes harbor incredibly rare species of orchids, palms, and endemic insects that have evolved to thrive nowhere else on Earth.
That is an incredible reframing of the landscape. So the next time you look at a rugged, completely inhospitable rock face or hear about a sinkhole swallowing a piece of human engineering, look a little closer.
Yeah, definitely.
Ask yourself what rare, unseen, hidden life is thriving in those jagged crevices simply because we cannot reach it. From fossilized oil reserves holding the memory of ancient oceans to a vanishing floor in a Kentucky museum, Karst reminds us that the world beneath our feet is rarely as solid and never as simple as we assume.